good evening and welcome. This is Newsfirst Primetime News on TV1. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Jaimal Ratnayaka. Today is the 31st of January 2022. Before we head into more news in detail, here are a look at your headlines for a moment.
Newsfirst Headlines. Main sponsor.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
KDK, the leader in indoor air quality. KDK, the reliable fan.
Water levels of the Nuwara to be reduced for the construction of a hotel. Mahasangha and farmers up in arms over the project. Farmers in Matale raid a fertilizer storage facility. Opposition leader makes pledge to the farmers. No power cuts until April, says Minister of Power. Attention drawn towards purchasing power from the private sector. Attack on JVP carried out with political motive, says Vijita Herath.
විශේෂයෙන්ම ජනාධිපතිවරයාට සහ මේ ආණ්ඩුවට අවධාරණය කරනවා. දේශපාලන ප්‍රතිපත්තිත් එක්ක හැප්පෙන්න එන්න ජනතා විමුක්ති පෙරමුණත් එක්ක.
මේක විපක්ෂයටම කරපු මර්ධනයක්.
Basil Rajapaksa's new plan to source dollars.
Newsfirst Headlines. Main sponsor.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
KDK, the leader in indoor air quality. KDK, the reliable fan.
For this evening, a media briefing was held at the Department of Government Information today to apprise the general public on the 74th Independence Day celebrations.
The media briefing, headed by State Minister of Defence Chamal Rajapaksa, was also attended by the Secretary of Defence and top brass of the military. Steps are in place to celebrate independence proudly while adhering to health guidelines announced owing to COVID-19. We have transported all military personnel required for the event to Colombo. 3,463 army soldiers will be joining the parade, 919 from the Navy, 804 from the Air Force, 336 from the police, 282 from the police special task force, 437 from the Civil Defence Force and 259 from the National Cadet Corps. A total of 6,500 will attend the parade. The parade has been organized in two parts. The Tri-Forces, Police, Civil Defence Force, National Cadet Corps will parade the streets as foot columns. Thereafter, the armoured vehicle parade will commence. We intend to parade a total of 111 vehicles. We plan to highlight our pride through this year's celebrations. Army Commander General Shavendra Silva inspected the mine resistance ambush protected vehicle manufactured by the Sri Lanka Electrical and Mechanical Engineers Corps earlier today. The vehicle will be included in the mechanized column of the 74th Independence Day celebrations.
On to another headline-making story. Farmers allege that an attempt is underway to lower the spill gate of the Nuwara in Anuradhapura in order to lower the water levels of the river to give way for the construction of a hotel. A protest against this was staged in Anuradhapura today.
Members of the Anuradhapura District Farmers Association and farmers cultivating their fields using the Nuwara staged this protest. The protesters marched from Ramakale in Anuradhapura to the Anuradhapura District Secretariat. Although the protesters attempted to enter the District Secretariat, they were prevented from doing so by the police. Several representatives from among the demonstrators were allowed to enter the premises to hand over a letter to the district secretary informing him of the illegal activities that are taking place.
නිසාවෙන් මාරාන්තික උපවාසයකට හරි ගිහිල්ලා වැවේ 88.5 කියන තැන අපි ඉන්නවා. ඒක වෙනස් කරන්නට කිසි කෙනෙකුට ඉඩ දෙන්නේ නැහැ.
එතුමා කරන්නේ එතුමාගේ හෝටලේ බේර ගන්න තමයි මේ උපරට්ටිය දැම්මේ.
එතුමා ඒක වාරගෙන ජනපතිතුමාට ගන්නවද මේක කරන්න එපා. ඒකයි අපේ ඉල්ලීම. මේ රසීදයක් හරි.
If this area is being filled, then the irrigation department must intervene. The Department of Irrigation must investigate it. The government agent has no power to do so. The water capacity of the Nuwara River is at 88.5 and is going to be reduced to 88 under the orders of the Minister of Land. We were informed that all of the required drafts have already been prepared to do this. As this move will cause a reduction in the water available for our consumption as well as farming, we have decided to protest against it. SM Chandrasena is trying to construct his hotel here. The swimming pool of the hotel has been constructed within the Nuwara River Reserve. I state with utmost responsibility that the swimming pool has been constructed parallel to the water levels of the Nuwara River. The Minister of Lands, who is responsible for the safety of these lands, has now turned a blind eye towards farmers. If you reduce the water levels of the river, that will be the day all the people in Anuradhapura take to the streets and engaged in a fast unto death. The Nuwara River, which adds immense beauty to the Anuradhapura town, was constructed by King Valagamba. The river bears a capacity of 36,049 acre-feet, is used to irrigate 2,600 acres of paddy fields in both the Yala and Maha seasons yearly. Around 5,000 families utilize the river, while the river supplies water to over 30,000 families. In addition, this river also supplies water to the many local and foreign tourists who visit the sacred sites in Anuradhapura. The Nuwara River adds beauty to the Anuradhapura town and is part of one of the most scenic views from Mihintale. Was permission granted to fill land within the boundaries of the river? As the Department of Irrigation, we have, however, taken steps to limit this. We have placed markers at the boundaries of the river. We have taken all necessary steps to reduce or prevent the river from being filled. However, sometimes the river is being filled illegally at certain locations. For the department alone to monitor and prevent this is a massive task. We need the support of all relevant authorities to do this. We have looked into this matter. We sent a drone as well. However, we have not been able to clarify that something like this is happening. Is there a proposal to reduce the water capacity of the Nuwara River? As the Department of Irrigation, we have not taken any such decision to reduce the water capacity. The river is at 88.5 and we are taking steps to maintain that height. News First inquired from the Minister of Lands, SM Chandrasena himself, regarding these allegations. I state with responsibility that I will not reduce the water levels of the river. There is a hotel that I built in the year 2000. Currently, renovation work is being carried out at the hotel. My house is located around 500 meters away from the river. Therefore, I have no connection to this matter. But the chief priest wanted to sling mud at me. That is what is happening here. News First has made a number of startling revelations in the past when these invaluable heritages handed down to us by our forefathers were at risk. The activities carried out at the Tissa River under the guise of removing silt. You may remember how the plan to construct a jogging path along the Parakrama Samudra and the Kantale River were withdrawn in the face of strong opposition from the general public. Now there are allegations of an attempt to destroy another river that is close to the hearts of the people in Anuradhapura. If the spill gate of the Nuwara River in Anuradhapura is lowered by 0.5, the capacity of the river will reduce by a total of 13,000 acre-feet. However, it must be noted that when the people begin to really feel and experience the consequences of these actions, it may be too late to take remedial action.
Farmers of Halungabua Matale raided the the fertilizer storage at the Agrarian Services Center in the area today. They protested against the move where fertilizer was not provided to them during the Maha season.
කාබනික රසායනික දෙකම නෑ රසායනික විතරක්
අරුණාට කමන්නේ. හැබැයි මේකට ආපු පොහොර සම්බන්ධව යූරියා අප්‍රමිතා වෙලා තියෙනවා මේ ගොවිතැන් ඉඩානේ. ඒක අපි ඒක උනේ පරිපූර්ණ අනිවාර්යෙන් මේ දෙන්නට කරන්න. හැබැයි පොහොර කොහෙටද ගියේ? විකුණාවේ කොහෙටද කියන එක අනිවාර්යෙන් හොයන්න ඕන. ඒකදී 6000 කියන පොරාගේ පොර දෙන්නක් ඕන මේ
The crowd dispersed after the Hadungamu police intervened and brought the situation under control.
Opposition leader Sajith Premadasa engaged in a protest staged in Galimbindunuwava, Horupatana. The protest was staged demanding a solution to farmers affected by the fertilizer crisis. A protest march commenced following religious rituals at the Huruluwava Mahadevalaya in Galimbindunuwava. The protesters then offered their pleas to the gods.
They created racist ideas in the people's minds. They used that as a political advantage. The same group is now begging for loans from Pakistan. They are now worshipping Prime Minister Imran Khan. They are now apologizing for making such comments about the Kottu when begging for dollars. Not just Pakistan, they are also begging Bangladesh to extend their grace period of the $200 million loan that they obtained. How can you beg like this? What happened to this government's heroism? This is all talk and no action. No matter what they say, the Samagi Jana Balavegya will be the next government in the country. The government for the farmers in the country. We are ready to give back, offer the lives of the farmers that were snatched by this government.
Dr. Susil Premajayantha, who was removed from his state ministerial portfolio recently, spoke about food security in the country.
We are importing rice from Pakistan, India and Myanmar. If the global recession intensifies and these countries do not have enough stocks of rice for themselves, they will stop exporting rice. Then we will not even have a grain of rice. What will we do then?
Minister of Power Gamini Lokuge has assured that there will be no power cuts until April this year. This decision was announced following a special meeting with President Gotabaya Rajapaksa earlier today.
Several factions, including the Electrical Engineers Association, joined the meeting held at the Presidential Secretariat. Our correspondent reported that the meeting went on for 3 hours. We will make an electricity plan explaining how to move forward until April without any power cuts. After calculating all these factors, we have to see whether we will have to resort to thermal power plants. If such a need arises, we will make that decision. Will there be power cuts if no rainfall is experienced? There are solutions for that. We will have to use diesel power plants for a short period of time. We can't decide that. The government has to decide that. We can move forward without having to undergo a power cut. We will have to spend for that. What is this costly process opposed by CEB engineers?
The prevailing power crisis in the country, which underwent many twists and turns in recent months, has now reached another critical juncture, along with a proposal to make an emergency power purchase of 300 megawatts. Following a discussion held with the President, approval has been given to the Ceylon Electricity Board to make this proposed emergency purchase. Although these people try to deceive the general public, they will have to come out in the open one day. Now, the CEB Engineers Union has recommended an emergency purchase of power. They cannot generate solar power. Neither have they developed the renewable energy sector. The engineers.
The two arrested suspects, along with another group, had carried out the assault at a meeting held in Kalagedihena Nittambu yesterday, which was chaired by leader.
The prevailing power crisis in the country, which underwent many twists and turns in recent months, has now reached another critical juncture, along with a proposal to make an emergency power purchase of 300 megawatts. Following a discussion held with the President, approval has been given to the Ceylon Electricity Board to make this proposed emergency purchase. Although these people try to deceive the general public, they will have to come out in the open one day. Now, the CEB Engineers Union has recommended an emergency purchase of power. They cannot generate solar power. Neither have they developed the renewable energy sector. The engineers give out a recommendation as they please, and the Secretary to the Ministry also gives the go-ahead, turning a blind eye to what is happening. A cabinet paper is presented to purchase power for 3 years. We asked the Public Utilities Commission not to approve this. If diesel is the problem at hand, why are we going back to diesel? Has the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka given approval for the emergency power purchasing process from privately owned power plants? If we have to go for an emergency purchase, we will have to bear massive costs. Requests were made from the Public Utilities Commission over the last 5 years to give the green light to around 16 of these emergency power purchases. But the PUCSL did not give the go-ahead to any of those, and there were no power cuts during that time. Through these decisions, we managed to save more than 570 billion rupees to the economy of Sri Lanka. We have never approved emergency power purchasing. The Ceylon Electricity Board is attempting to purchase 200 megawatts of power. They are trying to make the purchase from a private power plant in Ambilipitia. That is an illegal agreement. This government is not opting for renewable energy in a country where the sun shines brightly and there are healthy winds. Due to this tug of war between the officials, we have not been able to reach our targets.
Will they cut or will they want? That is the question. The famous quote from the Bard himself, slightly remodified in the hearts and minds of Sri Lankan these days, because we don't know when the Ceylon Electricity Board will cut the power. Power or electricity in your household is of paramount importance. I don't have to reiterate that. Why are we experiencing power cuts? What transpired you saw earlier. Let me tell you what is happening at this very moment. What you see right here is the daily electricity generation of our country, Sri Lanka, yesterday, the 30th of January 2022. Now, it is very clearly broken down to minor details here. 11.95 gigawatts of hydro power and 13.53 gigawatts of thermal coal, and so on and so forth. Well, the latest development in this power crisis or cutting power saga in Sri Lanka is that the broken down generator at the Norochole coal power plant, also known as the Lakvijaya power plant, was added back to the system, giving more strength to the entire grid of Sri Lanka to generate power. Now, with this particular figure that you see, 13.53 gigawatts, experts predict that this might go on up until 18 or 19 gigawatts per hour with the addition of the third generator of the coal power plant, the Norochole coal power plant, to the national grid. Now, it is common sense that this entire list is a system and the system needs to balance itself. So when more power is going towards this side through thermal coal, what do we reduce? What do we suspend? Well, a normal sane man or a sane person would predict that it is IPP thermal oil, which is a huge weight for the government, which is the government has to allocate so much money for IPP thermal oil, so why not suspend that? No, that is not the case. We will suspend hydropower because Sri Lanka is currently facing a dry season. There are droughts in certain parts of the island as well, so therefore we will reduce power coming from hydro power generation sources.
Can Sri Lanka go forward with coal power plants?
When all fails, the alternative of Sri Lanka is to opt for coal to generate power. What you see right here is a chart depicting the global prices, the prices of coal in the global market. As you can very clearly see here, it has been very slowly increasing over last year, and it has hit a peak in somewhere between September and November last year, and at the moment it is currently at $227.65 per 1 metric ton of coal. As you can see, let me depict it once again, it has been steadily gathering momentum, and it has peaked somewhere in between September and November, and at present it is at $227.65 per metric ton of coal. The question is, can Sri Lanka afford this? We are on the brink of collapsing. Some people say that we are on the brink of defaulting as well. Is this a viable solution?
Why not renewable energy?
Another very important topic is renewable energy. Is renewable energy the future of power generation in the world? Well, these are the top countries in the world that use renewable energy. As you can see, China is far ahead than most of the other countries in the world, and you can see number second place is United States, Brazil, Canada, India, Germany, Russia, so on and so forth. The million-dollar question here is, why can't Sri Lanka become a country that uses renewable energy? What are the obstacles that we have? Is it something really difficult that we can't attain as a country, or is there a certain level of corruption involved in this endeavor? We need to keep one thing in mind. That is, tourism in the country is slowly but steadily lifting its head. Schools have reopened after a long hiatus, and office affairs across the country is being done on a daily basis as well. All of these sectors have been badly affected by this unresolved problem. Power cuts. This unresolved problem, it is unresolved because of the negligence of authorities. Sri Lanka's economy is collapsing. Some economic experts have said that it is already collapsed, and on top of that we have power cuts, and on top of that we have responsible ministers of the government saying that the general public can tolerate this, they can take this, they should take this. These are all but puzzling statements. But the real puzzle here is this. Why are the authorities and the politicians of this country acting in such a lackluster manner that they are not performing their duties? Food for thought. We report, you decide.
And with that, we cross over for a short commercial break. Do stay tuned to News First.
News First. Main sponsor.
Sun all-purpose disinfectant spray.
KDK, the leader in indoor air quality. Over 110 years in bringing you the best of Japanese innovation and technology. KDK, the reliable fan.
Valuable Finance, best finance company.
Welcome back to the news. Still in local news, the two suspects who were arrested for carrying out an assault during a meeting organized by the Janata Vimukti Peramuna are currently receiving treatment at the Watupitiwala hospital. The Nittambuwa police are conducting further investigations into the incident.
The two arrested suspects, along with another group, had carried out the assault at a meeting held in Kalagedihena Nittambu yesterday, which was chaired by leader of the JVP, Anurakumara Disanayaka. The footage of the incident had been captured on CCTV cameras in the vicinity. The Janata Vimukti Peramuna convened a media briefing and explained further as to what happened. The group of thugs who carried out this attack were not able to harm Anura Kumara or his vehicle. The people behind this tried their best to portray this as something that the general public would have done. That was their ulterior motive. It is evident that these two people are in security service. This is the uniform of avant-garde, and this is a picture that has been taken recently. Therefore, it is clear now that this attack was orchestrated by avant-garde. The evidence is right here in this photograph. In addition, these suspects giving statements to the police say that they have been employed at avant-garde. Also, the incident in Fort and Gampaha has been orchestrated by the avant-garde as well. The chairman of avant-garde is Nisanka Senadipati. He is one of the closest allies of this government. It is clear that these attacks were carried out with some political influence. I would like to ask this government and the president to arm themselves with political policies to clash with us. Do not resort to such cheap methods. I would like to ask Gotabaya Rajapaksa not to use his close associates to stop us. This ruthless group of thugs and this security company must be held accountable if something happens to Anura Kumara Disanayaka. A statement obtained from one of the suspects clearly reveals that. Now the political connection behind this is very clear. The cat is already out of the bag if Prasanna Ranatunga had sent a letter. It is crystal clear to the people of this country. But now it is too late for the government. One of the suspects mentioned the name Prasanna Ranatunga. They are now trying to suppress by sending out letters. This is nothing but deceit. Meanwhile, addressing the president via a letter, Minister of Tourism Prasanna Ranatunga said that an impartial investigation must be carried out into the attack and the perpetrators should be punished regardless of their stature. He had requested the president to issue orders to the IGP to take necessary steps. I was in Damulla when I heard that a JVP meeting in the Gampaha district was attacked by eggs. I condemn this incident. I regret these actions. Every political party has a democratic right to communicate its views to its members. My name was also mentioned on social media with regard to the incident. I would like to responsibly state that I would never participate in such a cheap incident. Everyone who is engaged in politics with me knows that I would never take part in such a shameful act. If I see a challenge, instead of acting like this, I would face it head on.
Although Newsfirst attempted to obtain a response from the chairman of Avant-Garde Security Services Nisanka Senadipati on several occasions, our attempts proved futile as the chairman was attending to other commitments throughout the day-to-day.
Don't lie to the public. After speaking blatant lies stating that the country will face a large crisis in the future, they are unable to organize meetings in the village. Their meetings are attacked by bad eggs. Why has it come to this? People don't like it when they are constantly deceived. The people will not stand by when they are lied to. They cannot fool the people every day. The media tried to pass the blame to the Podujana Peramuna by mentioning the names of certain ministers. That is wrong. We have the backing of 6.9 million people. We have the two-thirds majority in parliament. Moreover, we were able to pass the budget with a majority. What will we gain by throwing eggs at a small faction?
අපි ගන්න ඕනේ මේක විපක්ෂයටම කරපු මර්ධනයක්. මං හිතන්නේ විපක්ෂයේ අපි දැක්ක පංගුවක් වෙලාවට
We have to view this as an attack that was carried out on the entire opposition. We saw a massive suppression campaign is carried out by this government against the Samagi Jana Balawegaya and its supporters. This is worsening as we speak because this government cannot govern this country anymore. Therefore, we would like to demand this government to rectify their mistakes. If the government does not change their approach, the people will start hating this government even more.
මේක පරිවර්තනය නොකරොත් මං හිතන්නේ ජනතාවගේ වෛරය මේ රජයට එන එක වළක්වන්න බෑ.
More news follows after this short commercial break. Stay tuned.
Providing science education to children in far-flung villages of the country. Tech Bus.
Organised by Slit Institute.
Tech Bus.
Main sponsor.
Slit Knowledge University. Challenging convention and redefining education.
Come back to the news. Colombo-based inflation increased to 14.2% in January 2022 from 12.1% in December 2021. Now, according to the central bank, inflation was driven by monthly increases of prices of items in both food and non-food categories. Food inflation increased to 25% in January 2022 from 22.1% in December last year. Non-food inflation increased to 9.2% this January from 7.5% in December 2021. Taking a look at more local news. In an interview with a weekend newspaper, Minister of Finance Basil Rajapaksa has revealed Sri Lanka purchased weapons from North Korea using money sourced from the black market during the height of the civil war.
The Central Bank of Sri Lanka decided to peg the Sri Lanka rupee at 202 against the US dollar in light of Sri Lanka's recent economic downturn. However, it has been observed that a US dollar costs more than 240 rupees in the foreign exchange market. As a consequence, many have decided to refrain from utilizing universally accepted methods to transfer foreign currency to Sri Lanka by today, instead, and opting to use black market money transfer systems such as Hawala and Undial instead. Speaking to the national newspaper on Sri Lanka's current economic status, the Minister of Finance had pointed out the use of black money transfer systems is not an alarming situation, adding that the method of transfer is irrelevant as long as dollars flow into the country. The minister has gone on to note the government will not act to stifle or discourage transfer of funds through such methods. At present, certain importers too utilize such methods to transfer funds. The finance minister has pointed out that goods bought through such black market methods and through accepted processors cannot be distinguished, and that the need of the other is to facilitate the receipt of goods through any means necessary. The Money Laundering Act of the Central Bank has banned the transfer of money through systems such as Undial and Hawala. But Minister Basil questions where it has been banned. He has also questioned how it was illegal to buy dollars from traders in Peta to purchase weapons. If this is a breach of the Money Laundering Act, Minister Basil is now claiming he has done it and asking what is wrong about it. Either he does not know the law or there is a massive confusion here. What does the Hawala and Undial systems do? When someone collects dollars or dirhams from another country, his agent deposits it to either his bank or hands it over to his home. If our central bank received those dollars, it would increase our foreign reserves, allowing us to purchase oil and medicine.
දිගින් දිගටම හො කියන්නේ කළු කඩයක් විවෘත වීම ප්‍රශ්නයක් නෙමෙයි බ්ලැක් මාකට් කමක් නැහැ කියලා තමයි කියන්නේ කොහොම හරි සල්ලි හොයන්නයි ඕන කියලා.
He keeps reiterating that opening black markets is not an issue. According to him, it does not matter where the money comes from. Minister Basil Rajapaksa's statement is similar to a statement made by a father who lost all his property by gambling, unable to pay off his debt. They have destroyed the institutional structures with the intention of somehow making money.
බල්ලු මරාලා හරි සල්ලි හොයාලා ඉන්න ටිකේ ඉමුසුදෝ ජොලිය දමාලා කියලා තමයි ඒ දවස්වල බයිලවල කිව්වේ. ඒකට ඒක තමයි මේ එමින් තියෙන්නේ ඉස්සර එක කිව්වේ තනි මිනිස්සුන්ට දැන් මුදල් අමාත්‍යවරයා.
According to the finance minister's standards, Sri Lankan law and international agreements must be disregarded when earning money.
ආවේ නීතිය හරි අදාළ නැහැ කියලා.
Minister of Foreign Affairs Professor G.L. Piris says the recent amendments to the Prevention of Terrorism Act represents a very substantial improvement of the existing law.
Government position in Geneva is that the international community must objectively assess the enormous progress that has been made during the last few months. In everything there must be a beginning, and then you move forward incrementally in stages. And we can show convincingly to any dispassionate person, any objective person, that the amendments which have been gazetted represent a very substantial improvement of the existing law. It is progressive. It is something that should be done. After all, the Prevention of Terrorism Act, which was enacted in 1979, said temporary provisions. Prevention of Terrorism, Temporary Provisions Act. Temporary provisions have lasted for almost half a century. It is this government, the government of President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, that has taken the initiative in changing that situation.
The Centre for Policy Alternatives says that the proposed amendments to the Prevention of Terrorism Act follow a minimalist approach, introducing only basic reforms which are insufficient to address ground realities. The CPA says many of the aspects which require urgent reform have not been addressed in the bill. CPA in a statement said, quote, "The proposed amendment to the PTA appears to be more a token effort to address international pressure rather than a genuine and effective exercise to address ground realities and the abuses and violations brought about by the PTA," unquote. Among other concerns, CPA says the period of 72 hours after arrest and before production before a magistrate has not been amended. According to CPA, this is a loophole in the PTA which facilitates the torture of those arrested under the Prevention of Terrorism Act while in custody. The Centre for Policy Alternatives also says the lack of judicial oversight during investigations has not been addressed by the amendments. The statement reads, "The definition of the acts which fall within the offence of terrorism is of a broad and vague nature, to be used even in instances where its use is not warranted. The access to an attorney at law is also provided for by law, and the amending provision does not ensure the protection of the right to representation of the accused. There is no provision in the PTA for information to be provided at the time of arrest on the cause of arrest and the rights of the suspect." Section 6 of the PTA gives extensive powers of search and seizure. The implementation of these measures relating to search and seizure should be professional and transparent and subject to oversight and judicial scrutiny. The amendment fails to address these.
The number of COVID-19 cases reported from the island exceeded 1,000 for the first time in several months yesterday. Meanwhile, another 1,082 COVID-19 cases were reported today as well, with this figure including 6 people who returned from overseas. Be that as it may, the health sector urged the general public to vaccinate themselves given the current rise in the number of cases. Vaccination centers were open island-wide to provide the booster shot to the general public even today.
The program to provide the booster dose to the public is being conducted under the guidance of Commander of the Army General Shavendra Silva. Booster doses were administered to the general public in the Anuradhapura, Polonnaruwa, Ampara and Kandy districts today. The Health Ministry announced that the existing COVID-19 guidelines have been extended till the 28th of next month.
ඔමික්‍රෝන් වෛරසයේ ශීඝ්‍ර පැතිරීමක් අපරට තුල පවතින අවස්ථාවක තමයි අපි මේ ඉන්නේ. ලෝකයේ තත්ත්වයත් එහෙමයි.
We are at a stage where the Omicron variant of COVID-19 is spreading fast in the country. This is the same situation that is reported across the world as well. A person dies of COVID-19 in the world every 12 seconds. This spread is having an impact on the health sector. It is hard to expect the community to develop herd immunity with this virus. Therefore, it is important that we increase our immunity against this virus and try to minimize the symptoms of the virus and the requirement to be hospitalized. Meanwhile, the All Ceylon Nurses Union pointed out that hospital staff are at risk. Pregnant nurses and nurses with children below the age of 1 are among those who face the most serious risk. Nurses with some special conditions are also at risk. We have informed the administration of hospitals about these matters on numerous occasions. In national hospitals alone, in the month of January, 175 nurses had contracted COVID-19. In the last week alone, 94 nurses contracted the virus.
Colombo Chief Magistrate Buddhika Sri Ragala ordered for 5 suspects arrested and detained in connection to the discovery of 350 kilograms of heroin in the southern seas of Sri Lanka to be released. The Chief Magistrate ordered for 12 other suspects arrested over the same incident to be remanded until the 15th of next month.
The Police Narcotics Bureau requested the Chief Magistrate to release the 5 suspects as investigations had revealed that they were not connected to the incident. A total of 17 suspects had been arrested and questioned in connection to the incident, and facts were reported to court today. The police also produced in court the stock of heroin that was seized with a street value of over 3.5 billion rupees.
An event to commemorate journalists who had been murdered or forcefully disappeared was organized in Colombo this evening.
The event was organized by the Journalists for Rights Organization and the Sri Lanka Young Journalist Association at the Viharamahadevi Park in Colombo. The event was organized to demand the authorities to do justice to journalists who have been killed or disappeared. The group expressed their opposition against media suppression by enacting a play.
A collection of selected essays by Dr. Malathi Dialvis were released in the form of a book today.
Dr. Malathi Dialvis was an anthropologist who extensively wrote about gender and feminism, political violence and war, grief and memory. A collection of selected essays by Dr. Malathi Dialvis named Her Smile Lingers was launched today. The book was launched at a panel discussion featuring Sonali Dharanigala, Rai Kali Baltasar, Chulani Kodikara, Kanchana Ruwanpura and Radhika Kumaraswamy. The webinar was moderated by Carol Tozer.
So this volume that we are launching today brings together 12 articles written by Malathi between 1994 and 2016. All of us in the editorial team worked as a collective in the spirit of feminist solidarity. Malathi spent a lot of time mentoring young scholars. Therefore, through this volume, we believe that Malathi will continue to enlighten and illuminate.
It is time to recover the writings and activism of a generation of scholars who dominated political and social discourse in the 1980s and 1990s. Perhaps rereading Malathi will help us recover the spirit of that era that once held us together as a community.
A year after the Myanmar coup, growing surveillance has threatened the lives of its people.
Across the world, authoritarian governments are tightening their control of the digital space, monitoring social media posts, demanding that critical posts be taken down, and using spyware and internet shutdowns to track and silence dissenters. In Myanmar, telecom and internet service providers had been secretly ordered months before the coup to install intercept technology that would allow the army to eavesdrop on the communications of citizens. With the junta in command, activists are concerned that telecom firms will come under more pressure to deepen surveillance. Fearful of being attacked, citizens have turned off the location settings on their phones and used encrypted messaging apps, VPNs and foreign SIM cards to communicate in organized protests and document human rights abuses in the country. Advocacy groups say surveillance has gotten much more heavy-handed since the military coup last.
With that, it's a wrap of Primetime News on TV1. For the Newsfirst team, I'm Jama Ratnayaka, alongside our sign language interpreter for tonight, Taraka Gabriel. Do remember to stay safe, take care, and have yourself a good night.